I'm going to show you why Tesla could be bankrupting these other companies if these other companies don't act during this upcoming recession. As you know, that Tesla's price cuts have recently affected the whole used car market, and there's been a lot of critics and people not really understanding what is even happening with those price cuts. And this all comes as last week Tesla announced that they would be dropping new car prices by up to 20%. So, I mean, obviously that's huge news, and I think what they're trying to do is take some of that market share in a recession. See, when a recession hits, companies start chopping off the dead limbs. They start taking out unnecessary expenses that don't make them a bunch of money, and they lose the less profitable services or products. So think of it like this. If Ford, GM, when times are getting tough, are they going to really put a bunch of research and development into their electric vehicles? I mean, if everyone's betting that that's the future, this is going to be a huge time to try to improve that or get that new edge. If Tesla's the only one making a used car at a reasonable price that is worth it to people and provides value, they could take a huge part of the market during a recession while everyone else is cutting off their EV programs. I mean, I doubt that Ford and GM are going to heavily get into EVs while a recession might be occurring, but obviously Tesla's a exclusively electric vehicle company, so they will be getting into EVs. By them dropping their prices, they're just targeting more and more people to acquire as customers. And their financials look really good, so they can afford to do this. But they have been lots of critics along this process. The Kia boss, he said it's a dangerous strategy to try to reduce prices, and we have a lot of other tools at our disposal that we would employ before we do that. Now, that's understandable if you don't have the means to do that, but if you can drop prices or increase your market share by like 50%, I mean, obviously you're going to do that. And I think Tesla is at the point where they can afford to do that. Even meet Kevin. He has a theory that Tesla's going to come up with a $25,000 car and they're going to lose money on every single sale. So why would they do that? They would do that because they want to get as many customers as possible moving forward. So think about your $25,000 customer. They can afford a car, but they can't afford a $50,000 car. But maybe they're going to get, that college degree or that new job, and then they're going to become Tesla customers for life. It comes to customer acquisition costs, which is what your $25,000 car would be. And then on top of that, it comes to lifetime customer value. And I think Tesla over this recession is going to really try to maximize their lifetime customer value by acquiring new customers that they wouldn't normally appeal to while everyone else is lagging behind. And I think it's pretty simple. These price cuts have led to the used car market just falling off a cliff. Like, there's been so many articles about people wondering why Tesla used car prices have just jumped off a cliff, down 13, 20, 25%. There's been a lot of misinformation or just a lot of wrong information. I love Doug Murrow, but he thinks that the slowing demand and car prices being cut is due to interest rates. And I know he has a lot of insight with his cars and business, but that's just simply not the case. I mean, think of it. If you have a new Tesla at $43,000, why are you going to buy a used Tesla at $45,000? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at these prices. I recognize that Carvana is kind of a dying company, but look, we have a Model 3 at $62,000. We have a Model Y, but that's almost 20,000 miles. That's kind of a bit of miles. We have another Model 3 at $47,000 with 50,000 miles. And now if we bring over the new car, we can get a new car for $44,000 before savings cost. Or we can get the nice one, at $54,000, which is still cheaper. And then if we go over to the Model Y, it's the same story. So why are these companies pricing these cars so aggressively still when they know that they can buy a new one for cheaper? And I think it's because they just want to catch the people that are slacking and don't really understand when you search, I want to save money on a used Tesla. You go to a used Tesla and you already assume it's cheaper. So I don't think it's necessarily anything about interest rates or whatnot. It's simply supply and demand. When you got new cars that are becoming cheaper, obviously you have to drop the used prices a lot in order to, make a used car seem worth it to someone. Even Car Dealership Guy from Twitter, he says that CarMax sold 57% of its inventory in the past 24 hours. And that was right after when Tesla announced that their price cuts were taking place. So obviously CarMax knew it was coming, so they dropped the price probably to around those new car deal area, and people who just don't know the news might have just bought them up and thought that they were getting a great deal. And this could, start the credit meltdown. If people have loans on their cars that just suddenly drop $10,000 in value overnight, that is a huge deal for people. And now they're underwater on some of their loans. Now, by cutting costs, Tesla could also be pricing out the companies Rivian and Lucid. And Elon and I think a lot of people think that these companies could be going out of business very soon. Musk says unless something changes significantly with Rivian and Lucid, they will both go bankrupt. They are tracking towards bankruptcy. I hope they can do something, but unless they can cut their costs dramatically, they're in deep trouble and will end up in the car cemetery like every other exception of Tesla and Ford. More importantly, Rivian and Lucid. They are two companies that have been making a bunch of news lately, but they're not making any money. Let's jump into their financial statements and just show you what's kind of happening here. So this is Rivian, and people may or may not know how to read an income statement. So Rivian made $536 million, but their cost of revenue, or cost of goods sold sometimes, was $1.4 billion with a gross profit of negative $900,000. I don't know how many companies can go negative 900,000 every single year or quarter and come out on top. But look, the past quarters have just been increasing their negative margins. That's an awful sign. And if we go over to their cash flow statement, it's going to say pretty much the same thing. Jump over to quarterly, and you got operating cash flow of 1.4 billion negative. Rivian has billions of dollars on hand, and the company CEO said they can survive till 2025, but if they don't make any changes, they're just going to slowly bleed out until that time, and it's going to be harder for them to get financing as it gets closer to the end of cash, because who's going to invest in a company that's just about to fail? So Rivian is on the clock as far as becoming bankrupt. I think there's a chance that they could get bought out. But let's move on to Lucid. And the same story is here with Lucid, except on a smaller scale because they don't do as much in revenue. Their gross profit is negative $297 million, and their cash flow, operating cash flow, is negative $1 billion. And their cash flow is negative $500 million every single quarter. If you can buy a Tesla for 50 grand, it's going to be hard to buy a Rivian for over 100 grand. So after Tesla announced their price cuts, all these other companies took a hit, and this is very interesting. Jumping over, Tesla went up by about 4%, and all these other companies, including Ford and Carvana, since then have gone down by over 10%. Rivian right around 5%, Lucid around 5% as well. But notably, this doesn't just affect the EV market, it affects everyone, and other companies are hurting, but Tesla's putting that hurt on them a little bit harder than normal, and I think this is a great sign for Tesla and very interesting moving forward. And this is why I think Tesla could come out of the recession ahead of everyone else.